Leilani, when you sent in that video, it was so off the cuff about indigenous knowledge in the Pacific, and you told me like, oh man, it's kind of messy, but it was perfect. It's 100% perfect as it was. I love off the cuff from the top of your dome kind of thinking, and you brought in like these amazing thoughts about indigenous knowledge, and people want to learn more. People want to know more. So we'll try to do as much as possible within 10 minutes. But sis, I really think you should start your own podcast. Really, I think you should do it. There's a lot of people that are.
I don't know if that many people want to hear my voice.
They are willing to see through the voice to get to the to get to the info. No, all jokes aside. No, I think people are very much because you speak with such profoundness, empathetic empathy. And I think that resonates with a lot of people. So like, if there's anything that you consider or do not consider from this whole show, 4 hours of craziness, please consider this. Please consider starting a podcast about this. All right, let's get into it before I rattle off into like a whole different realm of thoughts and everything else. Leilani.
Before anything, viva cumpleaños! Happy birthday, Ghazali!
Gracias, hermana. Gracias. Thank you.
Hey, that's Chamorro. That's Chamorro.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Oh. I knew it. I just knew it. I just knew it. And I forgot it. Forgot it as well. I apologize. Sorry, Leilani. Yes,
It's
thank
okay.
you. Where was I? Oh yeah, the whole point of the show. Leilani, give us like your process of thinking. How did you unpack the question? Where is indigenous knowledge going right now? Before you go into the answer, of course.
I thought a lot about what's important to me, and what makes what I see as my knowledge different from my peers or even my advisors in the Western Academy. And I really emphasize in all of my work, and especially in my research, empathy and love. I think that love is a really critical part of indigenous knowledge. And, I do consider myself a scholar, but I see indigenous knowledge as everybody else's knowledge, just with a little bit more heart added. So I do try to approach everything from that perspective. And I know that Nate is after me. So I also, I think about things in terms of water. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's unpack that a little bit, because there's so much in there. All right, let's talk love, because love has a stigma right now, nowadays, still. Your view of destigmatizing love and connecting it to indigenous knowledge.
I think that some of the stigma about love being taken seriously as part of knowledge comes from the masculinity that's emphasized in colonization. There are countless scholars who have come before me who have spoken a lot about how the colonization of the Pacific has mirrored the sexual violence done to the women and the Mahu and other gender people of the Pacific. And so when I try to cultivate knowledge then that works against those concepts, it's always going to start from a place of love, as well as, and I mean that also as most of my research also is really driven by my love for my grandparents, my love for talking to them every single day, no matter how much they make fun of me. And hearing what they're interested in. My grandfather was one of the first people who talked to me about the connections between militarism and climate change in Hawaii. And so that's really something, I take seriously what my kapuna are telling me to go research.
Mm-hmm. Leilani, something that you we had this very brief conversation at COP25. I don't even think you can remember it though. That you had ideas, plans, and correct me if I'm wrong, to indigenize academia and scholarship, like those kind of things. Can you unpack that a little bit? Talk about that. If it's still current, or yeah.
I always I love the classroom, and I think that that's something that's very Indigenous about me. There are these stories back in the beginning of Christian colonization in Guahan, where Chamorros and other exiles would challenge the priests and the missionaries to days-long debates. And so I've really always seen my traditional role in my community as both a storyteller and a researcher, as following in that tradition, just in a new way. And my experiences in Western academia, that was really largely rejected by my committee. One thing that's really just bizarre, I had a nuclear politics professor who told me that Guam had nothing to do with a conversation about nuclear weapons, which is just ridiculous. And I was consistently finding that my methods were devalued. And I think that a lot of it had to do with the fact that I include emotion just as much as I include historical relevance and theory in my work. And, that's something that I learned from a lot of Pacific scholars that came before me too, including my mother. My mother's a biologist who has incredible biology printed across her back, of course.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's just, this is a part of me. This is the way research and Indigenous storytelling is the way that I most clearly practice my ceremony. And unfortunately, there's not always the context for that, but that's what you're for. You're creating it.
I'll do my best. Leilani, I see, like, I saw you in terms of like physically, but also emotionally. I saw you change away when you talk about your mother, and like for me, when I talk about my mother, like she's a saint to me, even though she's not with us anymore. Tell me what is the importance of family, siblings in terms of Indigenous knowledge. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I told you that sister was one of my most important roles because I have a little sister who is, like all of us, born into this climate crisis right now, who may never get to see our home. And Indigenous knowledge is something that I work to cultivate, but the contexts that you and I met in, having to understand international law, and like you said, this is something that I never knew anything about before I had to know it. I do this because my love for my sister is such that I would like her to just do whatever she wants and not have to learn any international law, not have to learn what Article 6 of the Paris Agreement says.
Yeah.
It's all about about love.
I think just to add to that, Leilani, I so much that what you said so much resonates with me, as in the last thing that I want is to have my family, siblings, everyone else around me having to do the same thing that I do or we do. as in go pursue what you want to do. Go do
Yeah.
what you would love to do. What brings you happiness. What makes you look at life with empathy, kindness, respect, consent, reciprocity,
Yeah.
and just like I'm like I got your back. Like I'll do this. Like I made this my niche, like in the international work, the arena that we met, so that you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
Just any final thoughts on that? We're running out of time, but like I would love to hear your quick thoughts on that.
Just maybe a little bit of a transition to who's after me. There is a Papuan scholar, Bernard Narakobi, who compares colonization in the Pacific to a tidal wave. And the work that those of us who are left behind do is the act of taking a digging tool, sorting through the wreckage, and creating something that we can be proud of. So I think that's what we're doing. I really do. And Saina Maasi, thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you so much, Leilani, for your time. I know you're a busy lady. Definitely start that podcast. I'll help you with it if you don't want to. Definitely, because your way of storytelling, sis, 100%. Sis, I think it can be very inspiring. And there are not a lot of Pacific podcasts out there. You know,
there are the Pacific podcast, a little plug for them.
Yeah. Well, that, but like from your side, though, from your perspective, like I don't want to push you, but just a little bit of nudge. But thank you so much, Leilani, for getting on the show, for your time, for being you, and yeah, we'll definitely talk later. Talk soon. I appreciate it. Thank you.